Madam President, I just, in getting started this morning, wanted to take a minute to mention the good news on economic growth that we received this morning. While headlines mention the very solid 2.9% growth number for 2018, if we use the measure that economists prefer, the news is even better. 3.1% growth from the fourth quarter of 2017 to the fourth quarter of 2018. This is just more evidence that Republican economic policies are working. We lifted burdensome regulations and passed comprehensive reform of our tax code to put more money in Americans' pockets and make it easier for businesses to grow and expand jobs. And now we're seeing the effects. Unemployment is low. January marked the 11th straight month that unemployment has been at or below 4%. That's the longest streak in nearly 5 decades. The number of job openings hit a record high in December. And once again, there were more job openings than job seekers. Wage growth has accelerated. Wages have now been growing at a rate of 3% or greater for 6 straight months. The last time wage growth reached this level was in 2009. Median household income is at an all-time inflation-adjusted record of $61,372. And the list goes on. And what does all this mean? Well, it means more money in American families' bank accounts, more jobs and opportunities for American workers, more Americans feeling hopeful about their future. Republican economic policies are making life better for American families, which is why it is particularly disturbing that Democrats are currently advancing policies that would not only destroy the economic progress we've made, but would severely damage our economy for the long term. Yesterday, I came down and talked about the so-called Green New Deal, which is a fantasy put forward by a number of our colleagues on the other side. I think there are 11 Democrat senators who have co-sponsored that legislation, which the early analysis shows would cost somewhere between $51 trillion and $94 trillion over the next decade. And to put that into more personal terms, that's $600,000 per family in this country, the cost of the new Green Deal. My colleague from Illinois, the Democrat whip, was asked about it on an interview here recently, and he responded by saying that he had read and reread the proposal and still doesn't know what the heck it is. Well, that's an honest answer. But I think what we do know, Madam President, is that this is a proposal that will dramatically, massively drive up costs for American families. It would be a disaster for the pocketbooks of the people of this country. Which brings me to my topic for today. Madam President, on Tuesday, Politico released an article with this headline: House Democrats to release Medicare for All bill without a price tag. That was the headline. Well, this is becoming par for the course for Democrats. First, we get the Green New Deal resolution without a price tag. Now we get Medicare for All, also without a price tag. Why? Well, Madam President, it's because there's no way to actually pay for these socialist fantasies. They sound nice until you actually look at the staggering costs. Imagine if you decided that you needed to repair the plumbing at your house, and the plumber came and suggested that not only should you repair the plumbing, you should rebuild the house from the ground up. And then he wanted you to sign on for demolition and reconstruction without telling you how much it would cost. Well, that's what Democrats are trying to do on a grand scale here. They want to overhaul large parts of the economy and rebuild them on socialist lines, all without telling you what it will cost or how they will pay for it. Of course, while it's irresponsible, it's not surprising that Democrats don't want to discuss the price tag for their fantasies, because there is no way to pay for these massive government takeovers without taxing ordinary Americans. Democrats make vague suggestions that these programs can be paid for by taxing the rich. That's always the line. But the truth is that taxing millionaires at 100% income tax rate would not pay for these programs. Taxing Americans making much less than $1 million at a 100% rate wouldn't pay for these programs. The cost of these programs will never be borne just by millionaires. These programs will be paid for on the backs of working families in this country. That's the pure and simple reality. A left-leaning think tank modeled a version of the Medicare for All plan proposed by the junior senator from Vermont and found that it would cost a staggering $32 trillion over 10 years. $32 trillion. And it's possible that the House Democrats' plan could cost even more. Politico noted in their story that unlike the senator from Vermont's plan, House Democrats' plan would also, and I quote, fund long-term care, a particularly expensive part of the health system, end quote. But Madam President, moving away from the staggering price tag, let's talk about what life would be like under Medicare for All. For starters, of course, it would mean that Americans would lose their private insurance, even if they like their private insurance. Democrats have been very clear about this. At a CNN town hall just this week, the junior senator from Vermont was asked, and I quote, will these people be able to keep their health insurance plans, their private plans through their employers if there is a Medicare for All program that you endorse? The senator from Vermont's response, no. Another Democrat candidate for president, the junior senator from New York, was recently asked, and I quote, should ending private insurance as we know it be a Democrat goal? And do you think it's an urgent goal? Her response, oh yeah, it's a goal. It's an urgent goal. So if you like your health insurance, you definitely won't be able to keep it. You'll be forced into the government health care plan, whether you like that plan or not. And then, of course, you'll be facing the long wait times and likely a limited choice of doctors and hospitals. And you'll have fewer options if the government decides a particular treatment isn't cost-effective and shouldn't be covered. Democrats can talk all they want about generous coverage, but what happens when they don't have the money for that generous coverage? We already know this program is likely to cost more than $30 trillion over just 10 years, and government programs aren't exactly known for staying under budget. What happens if it ends up costing more? Or if the government can't even pay the $32 trillion that we know it's going to cost? Well, still more taxes, undoubtedly, but also reductions in coverage and care. Madam President, our nation's current Medicare program is going bankrupt. If action isn't taken, in 2026, Medicare will not be able to pay the benefits that are promised under current law. And yet Democrats are suggesting that we more than quintuple the size of the program and that somehow we'll be able to pay for that. If we ever do pay for Medicare for All, we'll pay for it by taking the money from the American people through devastating tax increases that will permanently reduce American standard of living and permanently damage our economy. Like all socialist dreams, Medicare for All would quickly become a nightmare for the American people. Madam President, I yield the floor.